morning. We're going to
hello.
Get things started. Let's try that again. Good morning. You guys happy to be here? All right. So my name is Paige Jackson.
And I'm Derrick Jackson. I'm trying not to fall during this thing. I'm a little clumsy, so.
Are you uneven?
Yeah, it's all good, though. We're going to be good. We're going to be good.
I may take this off.
We're going to get started in just a second. Give me a minute.
You could step.
I'm going to go forward a little bit.
Okay.
All right, we're good now. We're good.
Well, I should probably step back.
Y'all weren't going to say nothing, though. Y'all saw that stage and was like, yeah. We're going to see if he gonna pay attention there or not. Trying to get a laugh out of me. Yeah. All right, cool. All right, well, thank y'all for coming out. We're going to jump into it. This may be a little different, I guess, than we try to tell stories just because we feel like we're pretty good at it, at telling stories through our journey. So we're going to tell you a little story.
Well, first of all, we are going to start with who we are, what we do, which, like we just introduced ourselves, but we have a farm in North Carolina. It's named Grass Grazed Farm, and we raise cattle, pork, chicken, eggs, pretty much all the things. But in addition to that, we also have 5 kids, which is, I'm assuming, why you all are here today. So we've been married for 15 years, going on 16 this month. And he likes to make sure I remember that. I don't forget those things, though. So we've been married for a while. We've had kids, but we did not always farm. And we're going to kind of walk you through really fast what that journey looked like and then kind of what that transition turned into with our family. So, Derrick, you want to?
Yeah, so just to build a context for it, we're first-generation farmers, didn't grow up on a farm. If you attended one of our things or our talk yesterday, you may know a little bit about this. We're going to hit the surface top of it. It's probably not going to make a whole lot of sense because you're going to say you went from 25 chickens in your front yard in a suburb in Fayetteville, North Carolina, to 6,000 birds on pasture, managing 160 acres in 3 years. That was us. First year, we raised 6,000 broilers on pasture with Paige, and her brother by ourselves processing on farm between 2 different farms. So it's not going to make a whole lot of sense, but if you read a little bit into it, we did it. It was a little while, but it's going to be across the top. And we'll answer a lot of questions in the end if you guys have questions about it. But like Paige said, we started this journey after about 14 years. We were active duty in the military. Paige and I got married right after high school sweethearts. We got married my first year in the service. And fast forward 14 years, 13 years into it, I started recognizing that I was having issues with my gut, and there was no explanation for it. I started getting curious. When I say that I'm first-generation farm, the most I ever did on the farm was pick out crawfish in a ditch. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Anybody? All right, Tupelo, Yazoo County, Mississippi is where I did that at. There you go, right? He knows a little bit about that. That's about far as I went as far as farming. And then Paige.
I have nothing.
Nothing. Her dad is an expert at cutting grass.
That was not the life that I lived. I don't even eat crawfish.
Yeah, so no background there. Just to build the story just a little bit to help you guys understand, 14 years into it, Paige was a homemaker, had her own business. I'm active duty, and a little bit different than active duty. So I joined the military during the time of war, and my uncles my uncles give me a bunch of crap for it because they're like, dude, you picked the wrong time to join the military. Like, oh, I didn't pick it. It's the time that I was born. But during that time, I was gone. Of those 13 years, I missed the first 6-7 years of my oldest and my second oldest, everything. Pretty much everything you can think of. I missed it all. Multiple rotations to Afghanistan, Iraq, and then I decided that wasn't enough, and I'm trying to scratch this itch. So I said, hey, we can do better. we can do better because she's so good at being a stay-at-home mom and she's just doing the whole single parent thing because that's what happens when a couple are married in the military. Whoever's active and whoever's not active, the person that's not active is a single parent. It's just what we realize is you're doing it by yourself for the most part. And then so I'm getting curious and I say, hey, well, we can do more about this. She's good at it. We're not really picking up on the cues that maybe that's not a good thing to be good at is separation. But we were getting pretty good at it. So I decided I want to do a little bit more. So I went along. I started jumping out of airplanes and doing some crazy stuff, like just because I felt like I can do more. And she's so good at, keeping our family together. They're asking more of me. Family's asking more. And then things start breaking, right? About 7-8 years into it, things start breaking, including my body. So I pushed harder. The military said, we got you. You're good. We're going to keep you fit, right? So during this time, I'm like, wait a minute, that's weird though. When I sneak and eat ice cream at 12 o'clock at night, midnight with my wife when my kids go to sleep, because we want to make sure that they don't eat a whole lot of ice cream. We try to consume it before the next morning.
I just need to interject here because he acts like I'm in like this is a dual thing.
She's complicit.
I was not complicit in this at all. This was Derrick who would eat ice cream late at night. He does this every time we tell the story.
So since y'all
he
asked,
was the one eating the ice cream. I was just sitting there. I was not partaking. I just want to clarify that.
This happened, and Paige and I go back and forth. I don't fight her on this because I know that I'm right, but it's okay. When you have kids, right? We share responsibilities during this during the childbirthing experience, right? She has her side.
Wait.
Right?
Did y'all hear what he just said?
There's some laughing going on, so people understand what we're talking about here.
I want to make sure y'all heard what he just
laughters.
said before I go in. Did y'all hear what he just say that one more time so everybody in the back can hear?
Shared responsibilities.
Shared responsibilities.
Right? But here's I'm not trying to it's all her, but I'm gonna give you my little side of it, right? The other side to it is when she asked me, we haven't talked about this before, but this ice cream started when Paige used to say, hey, you want some ice cream? It's 11 o'clock at night. I got PT in the morning at 6. I got to be up at 4:45. No, I don't want no ice cream at 11 o'clock at nighttime. But she wants it, and she's pregnant. And what do you do when your wife is pregnant and she wants something? You go get it, Crocs and all. I got in the car, went and got the ice cream. People would look at me in the grocery store and be like, what are you? You're here with Crocs on, with PT shorts, and you're buying ice cream. Hey, 3 kids into it, I became really good at being a supportive husband.
I think that's just called serving your due diligence, especially since I'm growing a whole human. That's not the same thing. No. I was growing a whole human.
Yep.
And back to the story of our transition of the whole thing. We had 5 kids, and the reality of it was really hard. And we don't talk about this a whole lot on social media because no one wants to hear about the hard stuff and the sad stuff. But I was good at being a single mom. And I'm not proud of that, but that's what it became. And it then became a question of like, is this going to be the trajectory of our life? Is this going to be the way that we're going to continue to raise our kids, to have you kind of coming in, popping in when you want to, and then me fulfilling roles that I don't really know I should be fulfilling, right? I don't really want to have to teach all of these things if I have a partner who can assist with this, but it was just a matter of him being present. So we didn't do what most people would do, but we had this idea when Derrick decided to transition. We also were learning more about our food, and we decided that we were going to source food from farms. And so in that process, Derrick then said, hey, I'm going to grow our food. Like, this is what I'm going to do. If we're going to, like, say that we care about what we eat, I'm going to grow it for our family. And that whole journey took us into where we are now, transitioning fully with the family. So
it was I didn't want to grow anything. That's not what I want. I was not trying to grow anything. My whole plan was to source from farmers, people that were good at it, because when I grew up, it was until I started farming, I thought that only people that grew up on generational farms could be farmers. That's what I thought. I didn't know any. The ones that I did know, it was like they were born into it, and that's just what they did. It was never like, well, you chose to move out in the middle of nowhere and to be alone in the middle of nowhere, slaving in the field under the sun, getting sunburned, playing with snakes. I don't know if they necessarily play with the snakes, but it seems like people be playing with snakes. Why would you choose that? It's just you don't choose it. You're born into it, and that's what I thought growing up. So during the time we discovered, it just became a thing of I couldn't trust what was on the labels, and I couldn't trust the people that were saying that they were raising it the right way. We were having health issues, and I knew that it was tied to food. At this point, we had gone through this journey. The military paid me a whole lot of attention and money in order for me to learn things. Like I analyzed things, and then I started analyzing food, and then I realized, wait a second, how is it that the milk gets to the grocery store? What is the process of getting a gallon of milk to the grocery store? How is it that you could sell a turkey for 69 cents a pound? How is that possible? Those things just didn't add up to me. And then I started doing a little bit more research, and then comes to find out, I discovered the state of agriculture in the United States, and it was disturbing, which led to me buying 25 chickens. It was at the point where it was just like, I'm just going to do it myself on this little, it wasn't even a quarter acre of land. It was a front yard, and we didn't have a choice, so I just did it. I felt like that's what I had to do in order for us to eat well. We did it. We cut out certain things. We stopped eating as much dairy, all the things that we enjoyed doing. I was still eating ice cream because I just could not give it up. But I gave up that whole milk thing. But ice cream, I was still messing with it. But I said I was going to take one thing at a time. So during that time, it was just like, well, I'm able to raise it myself. I got it. Cool. Okay. Well, wait a second. How is it that I got these 25 chickens and they don't take that much time, but 25 chickens won't feed five or seven plus another grown person it won't sustain you for a year. So we would need more land. So long story short, I figured out that in order for me to do it, I needed to be full time. I needed to commit to it full time. I'm going to farm full time, and that means that I'm going to have to figure out how to make money from the farm in order for me to do it full time, because I discovered that I really enjoy serving food that we raised on our farm. And we felt better. I felt better. And there was a number of things that we discovered throughout that time, but that led to, fast forward 4 years now, we moved 2.5 hours away from where we were currently at. I left the military to farm full time. Like Paige said, we have a direct-to-consumer business. Paige and I run the farm. We manage about 160 acres total. We live on a 7-acre homestead. Combined, I think we have probably raised combined over 40,000 birds at this point in time. And we are pig farmers, meaning we raise more pigs than anything else. Last year we raised about 125 hogs, and we do all the farrowing and everything on farm ourselves. We also have a dairy co-op, or we do dairy and some other things. So that's kind of what we do. That's kind of who we are and what we're currently doing. We sell direct to consumer. But so how do we do that, right? How
I think it's how do we do it with a family? How do we do it with a family?
How do we do it?
So I would say that when it came to making the transition into farming, it wasn't like I had dreams of being a farm girl. You know, you see the social media posts and it's like, I just was waiting to get here forever. That was not me, okay? I was not. I just wasn't like aspiring to be, I don't know, raising chickens, butchering pigs, which are all things that I have done at this point in my life. But again, it wasn't something that I dreamed of. But when Derrick had proposed the idea of us doing something that we could do as a family, I was like, full stop, say less. Like, I'm in. Like, I'm in. Like, we can do this as a family. You'll be around. You're not going to deploy. You're not going to, like, be gone once a month. Like, let's go. Let's do this. And so that really was I would say, what convinced me. And it wasn't until we really got into farming did I realize, like, what I was getting into or what I signed up for. And this is not to scare you. This is just, I'm just being very honest.
So the conversation happened where I told Paige, hey, I like what I'm doing. I like raising this. I like raising food. I feel like it's something different about this. And I like it. We can make money from it. it can support the farm. It's possible. I want to do this. So what I said was, we have to find land. So we went and found it. And we signed a lease on a property that was 2.5 hours away. I still had a job. Paige and the kids still had their life, and the school, everybody, it was still the same thing. Like, nothing changed from there. So how did we get from I'm commuting every single day, 2 hours to go to the farm, to have pigs, to have chickens, to have these things, because we still had a life that, we were still trying to manage both of them. So Paige tells me, no. We have to move. We have to move, and we need to move now. We need to move to the farm. If we're going to do this, we have to do it as a family. Like, we have to be there. It's not just a job, it's a lifestyle. And she said that, and I was like, it's a lifestyle. I was like, I want to feed us, and I want to make money, but I'm not. Let's have it separate. Like, let's just keep it separate, and let's try to do both. Because I thought that's what they wanted, right? Kids were in school, playing sports, doing the things that we thought we really enjoyed doing. And so Paige says, no, we're going to do it this way. And I was like, oh, okay, well, okay, cool. So 2 months later, we found a place that was close enough to our farm, and we moved there. And we went from a 3,400 square foot house in a manicured neighborhood where people do pretty much everything for you, to a 1,200 square foot house that was a 2-bedroom home, so that we could be closer to the farm. Now, you're like, wait a minute, you moved into a 2-bedroom farm. You said it was 7 of y'all, plus your mom who's disabled. Yes, we did. That means we bought a camper, we bought some other stuff, we turned some living rooms, we rearranged some housing stuff, and we did it so that we could be on the farm, because Paige thought that it was what we had to do.
Now, I know I just said I wasn't intending to be a farm girl, but yet I was the one who said we needed to live on the farm, because in my mind, I was like, there's no way that we could actually do this as a family, what we envisioned doing, if we weren't actually living on the farm and doing it together. So, and I remember this conversation where Derrick we kind of fought about it a little bit, and he was like, we could just get like a regular house. Like, are you sure you want to do this? And I'm like, yes, this is it. I understand what I'm signing up for. I understand that my bedroom is now going to be a living room, but I'm okay with that, because to me, it seemed like this is the sacrifice that it's not really a sacrifice in that regard of us actually doing this together.
We had to be together.
And that was really kind of the driving force into why we made the decision that we did. So, from there, we decided, well, okay, we're living on this little farm. We're farming full time. Yep. This looks really different. We both have different perspectives in that journey. And so we figured we would share our different perspectives in terms of my experience of living on the farm with the kids, as well as Derrick's, because it's been different for both of us.
So how that transition into us being on the farm, what did that look like? It was a circus, and it was a fast. It was a circus. We were busy. If you can think about it, does anyone in here do any type of sales off farm, or that sells to maybe a farmer's market or something like that? Any hands? Anybody? Okay, we got one. Okay. Well, do y'all go to farmers markets?
Okay.
Boom, there we go. Okay, so I don't know if y'all understand how the farmers markets, how they get there, and what it takes for the farmers to get to the farmers market. It starts the day prior. And it runs, so those farmers have to do their chores, which I'm sure y'all have animals, and you have to do those things before you go to work or whatever, for the ones that are farming, right? So just imagine you got to do all of these things, right? And our chores look a little different. Instead of moving, 5 pigs, we're moving 30 pigs. And instead of moving 25 chickens in a tractor, we're moving 500 chickens on pasture in tractors, and then doing brooder management, and then all the other things, right? Cutting grass, maintaining the fence line, because the pigs are looking for their opportunity to escape. If you have pigs and you don't think that they know and they can read your mind, they're watching you. They do this thing where they know when the fence is off. So if you allow the fence to go off and you want to see if your pigs are loyal, just go ahead and turn it off and turn your back. They're coming, because they know. They know when the fence is off, especially on Sundays when you got to go to church or when you got to go drop the kids off or something. That's when they like to test the wire. So all these things have to happen before. So you're prepping all these things. So we were doing that, and we were working 7 farmers markets. So we were doing 3 in one day and then 2 throughout the week. So we were busy. We had product that had to be picked up from the processor. We're doing weekly runs. We're processing chickens because when you have 500 birds, you're processing maybe once a week or 2 or 3 long days out of the month. And all up until that, you're prepping. Like you're prepping. You got 500 chickens on pasture. When they come out pasture, that means something's going. When you process, that means you're bringing more on pasture, right? So it's always a continuous cycle. So we're doing that. The 2 of us are doing this together. And it's along with the kids, trying to figure out what exactly is happening here. We don't know. We're just going to keep falling forward. We just have to keep falling forward, keep going, keep adding to it. So we did that for a while.
Right. But to add context, you understand, we were a military family. So I feel like being a military family, you have kind of this like, I don't know, you're just wired different, where you're like, I got to get this done. This has to happen. Whether it's like a PCS move or something, you're like, I got to pack the house up. This is happening. Let's go. So we really carried that mentality
over into farming.
Yep.
Which carried us through that first year. We started during COVID. So we were that farmer that was at the farmer's market. So all these things, we were just trying to keep up. So we were trying to keeping up. And then we got a little help. We brought some help on farm. But as a family, what was going on? As a family, Paige is also homeschooling now.
Well, let me tell you about that. Because I also did not envision being a homeschool mom either, okay? Now, listen, I think homeschool is fantastic. Incredible. I'm one of 14. I'm number 6 in the lineup. And same mom, same dad, not Catholic. My dad was a pastor. But you have to give, like, the precursors because everyone always... Anyway, so I definitely... my mom had, like, pulled us out from time to time to homeschool, but it wasn't something that I was like... I'm going to grow up to be a homeschool mom, like I didn't think that. And so when we made the transition to move to the farm, it was during COVID. And I remember the kids they had spring break, and the spring break just kept getting longer and longer. And they started sending packets home, and I was like, what's going on here? Like, I feel like y'all are not going to go back to school. And my son, I remember him saying this like vividly, like driving in the car, and he was like, but Mom, what if we don't go back until like Christmas? And I was like, that's crazy. This is not, I think I said that's poppycock. I was like, that's insane. You're going back, like it was just not something that I thought about. And I was eating those words because they eventually were like, okay, school's just, we're just going to keep extending this. And then I said, we might as well just pull the kids out because, we're paying for tuition for nothing. And they might as well just like be home and we could just figure this out. And then it was like, well, okay, but then we're also moving to a farm. If we're going to move to a farm, how am I going to be able to take the kids to school, like do all these things, and then still work on the farm? Like, I don't know. Maybe we should consider homeschool. So Derrick was really the champion for homeschool. Like, and I needed some convincing. I had to listen to some podcasts. I had to, read some books. And I definitely came to realize that through homeschooling our kids, there would be a sense of there was a sense of responsibility that I didn't always have, right? And this is not like a public school, private school's better, whatever, homeschool's better. I'm just sharing with you my experience. When we homeschooled, I realized that there were a lot of things that I did not know about my kids. Like, I realized that my kids spent half of the day with someone who wasn't me or Derrick, and those people were investing in them, they were training them, they were cultivating them, they were developing their character, and I would just kind of pick them up with a report of like, hey, we'll say a good day, thanks, drive away, and then get in my mom's Suburban and drive away. And so when we homeschooled, I realized like, oh, whoa, wait a minute, you struggle with anger, or you struggle with trying to be right all the time, which we all do, but it was like these things that I saw in my kids that I had never seen before. And it was more about learning their hearts in a way that I had not known before. And so, although homeschooling is awesome, I feel like it's more than just teaching them books. It was cultivating their heart, and that was really the biggest takeaway. So, I feel like I really got a big crash course into, oh, whoa, we're doing this. Like we are doing this completely. Like not just this. Like we're farming for fun. Like we're doing more than that.
It's really a lifestyle. Even though she said that in the beginning, it was still like, well, while we were farming as a business, the only thing I saw was we have to survive this time. We have to survive. Like that's what I'm thinking. Okay, we just gotta keep moving. We gotta keep moving. We gotta keep the lights on. We gotta keep the farms moving. We gotta keep the animals alive. Like that was my priority. Not thinking about, well, wait a minute. What's happening to your family? So we're looking around, and after Paige is like homeschooling, and we're trying to figure this. These were all things that we did not originally sign up to do, that just became a part of living on a farm. Like it really did. I don't know if you guys understand that some things take a whole lot of time, right? And then when you think they take a whole lot of time, you add kids into it, and then sometimes they don't get done. And I'm like, we got to get it done. Like if I start a project, I have to finish it. I can't leave it undone. That means I'm that guy that you would drive past, and if you drive past the interstate and you see a little headlamp moving around at 11 o'clock at night because I'm trying to cut the grass, because it seems like when the sun goes down, the weeds grow into the fence to short it out. Like, so these were things that I was dealing with. So I was like, no, we got to get them done. So not knowing that in order for this to work in a way that supports all of us, we all have to be included in some kind of way. But we we didn't have any understanding of how to make that happen, right? And anyway, we were too busy to do it. So we slowed down after 3 years, and we said, hey, well, wait a second. Paige is like, the kids are homeschooled, but we need to do a better job at this. Like, we have to be way more intentional with what we're doing with them. So a lot of the things that we discovered throughout the time was this was a business, and people weren't really enjoying what was happening. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of fun. There wasn't a whole lot of laughter.
Well, listen, if you were processing chickens at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, you're bagging.
Has anyone ever processed a chicken before? Anyone ever processed a chicken? Okay. Now, if you have ever done that and then done the packaging, and you are just looking at each other like, I don't know what we're doing right now.
Yeah, you can get
a little. I mean, this is just being. You can get a little testy. It's like I'm kind of over this a little.
You can get friends to help you out once.
Just one time. But we did it all the time.
Don't invite them all over at one time. Don't do it. You got to invite them over.
You're gonna lose all of those.
You'll
friends.
lose them all.
All of them. They're never gonna come back.
You'll lose your help, and then they may not ever want to come back over to your house again because they think that you're trying to set them up. So just be careful. If you invite them individually, then they all won't conspire together, right? So you don't want that. You gotta spread it out. But like during that time, it was times like that where we did start to see, wait a minute, this is actually kind of fun. Like we started laughing more, right? We started paying more attention to things that we just enjoy doing, like the process of doing it together as a family. Now, in the beginning, we didn't like it, right? We were just like, we have to get it done. Everyone agreed. We have to do this because this is what we feel like is better for us as a family. Not everybody was on board. All of the kids, like you said, you think you know your kids, buy some animals. You think you know people? Go ahead and get some animals and put them in the fence in your backyard and just watch.
You think you know your husband, move pigs together. Because if you move pigs with your husband, you might say some things that you didn't want to say. You can't take it back. But that's just...
If you move pigs with anybody, you
move pigs with anybody.
You have to prepare people for that.
Your spouse. That's like a... Anyway.
You have to prepare them. Hey, we're moving pigs. Things happen, right? Don't take it personal. Just, we got to get it done. But one of the things that we discovered throughout this time is I started slowing down just a little bit and paying a lot more attention to what was happening around me. The farm was fine, right? But I knew that in order for us to sustain this over a long period of time, we had to enjoy it, right? There had to be something else, right? You hear people talking about it like, well, how do they get their families? But then you meet people, the farmers that I knew that had been doing it forever, they You don't ask them about parenting. You know, how'd you get your family? And they're like, I don't talk to my brother. He wanted to raise cows and I wanted to raise pigs, and we just didn't see eye to eye, so we don't even talk about it no more, right? And it's like, well, come on, somebody, like, as a family, how do you guys do it? One of the other things that we saw was it was typically the husband for older couples that were doing it for a living, older, hey, they survived this, what wisdom. And what do they say? Well, I let him do it, and I just leave it alone. I'm just here to support when I can support, but we just let him do it. Just let him do it. And we figured out why they just let the other person do it, because, like Paige said, together we're great. And then the other time, it's hot, right? It gets testy, right? Because you're like, well, I want to do it this way, and I want to do it this way. This is your business partner, right? And you're just trying to figure out, well, how do we do this together? Well, one of the things that we did discover is if you slow down, right, if you're able to slow down and you allow people to just be around and just enjoy the moment, I stop having expectations out of the kids, right? I want them to be involved. Like, I want them to, but I don't want to force them to do it to the point where they resent me for it, right? So how do I do that? And Paige would tell me, she'd be like, hey, well, maybe you should just invite them, and tell them that you need their help. Like, just tell them that you need your help. And I'm like, and this is me. I'm 14 years military. My dad was military. One of my employees one time told, which was Paige's brother, came and said that, what he said? You know what Derrick said to me? And Paige said, what? He said, I don't need you. If you can't do, if you're here and you can't do it, then I don't need you. And I said, well, wait a second. I mean, that's what I was told, right? Like, that's what they tell you. Hey, if you cannot do this, right? If you can't do this, then what do I need you for, right? And that's the mentality that I had. Like, and that's just as a farming family, that's not that doesn't cultivate any initiative out of anybody, right? So I was like, okay, Paige was like, just invite them, right? Don't just invite them. Tell them you need their help, even if you don't need them. And I'm like, well, I don't need anybody's help. I can do it. I can do this, right? I can do it. The only reason why y'all are here is because Paige wants y'all to help me. But I said that one time, but they were family, so it's okay. They forgave me. But with the kids, it's just like, okay, well, got it. That's what I'm going to do. And I started just inviting people in. I started inviting the kids in, and just to see what has happened. And one of the things that I discovered during this time of just allowing them to be present and inviting them, asking them for help, is they have a curiosity. Right, there's one thing, some of the benefits and some of the things that we have learned to love so much about farming is when you increase, or when you increase the acreage, I'll say, you increase the fence line, the barriers for your kids, you'll be amazed at the discovery that's there. Like, you just give them the room to be able to exercise their imagination. And my second oldest son, like, he has an imagination that, I mean, I crave an imagination like that. Like, I love it, right? And just to see them flourish out on this acreage, right? And you're like, well, does it take that? It just takes room, right? You just give them room to be able to exercise and just explore, right? And that's what I did. I'm just gonna give them room. And my daughter McCartney, she started following me as it was time to milk the cows, right? And again, we milk cows in the morning time, right? And that's like, we want to get it done really fast because the cows get super anxious. The flies start coming out. We want to do it right before the sun comes up. We want to get the milk inside, get it chilled, and all these things. And I need to go move pigs and cows. So let's get it done, right? And my daughter, she wants to be a part of this, and she wants to learn, right? So she started by just coming, and she's looking. She was curious. And I'd be like, oh, you don't have to. And she's just like, oh, no, I just want to be. And she stood and she would watch. And she watched me for time. Days after day, she would just show up out there. I didn't expect anything. She just showed up. And then she said, hey, can I do that? And I said, in my head, I'm like, I got so much to do.
Derrick
okay,
has
go ahead.
Derrick has this thing where he he would also think that the kids were not, they just couldn't do things. They're like, they're not capable of doing that. And where I grew up in a big family, I'm like, oh, yes, they can. They can do anything. And I say this to my kids all the time. I'm like, you are capable of doing so much more than you think you can. And it definitely took time for Derrick to, I would say, like, embrace that mentality.
It's still a process.
Allowing them.
You're still trying to, hey, we have, and it's like, well, with them now, it's like, well, no, we slowed down the business, right? If the business requires that much time, then to where I have to pull for, then we're not doing that. Like, that's one of the things that we've made changes with. If it requires so much time that I have to take from them, then we're not doing it anymore. That's just what it is. If it requires us to, we just don't do it. It took a while to get there. There were some sacrifices. We had to say no to some things. I mean, you say no to some money, right? Which is fine. But it's a trade-off for being able to spend time with them. Now my daughter can milk a cow by herself. She can move them on pasture by herself. She can do it without me. She's able to do it. I didn't, hey, well, let's do this. And I didn't try to teach her. She probably wouldn't have liked to do it because maybe I'm not the best teacher when it comes to teaching them how to do these things. But them watching us, giving them the time to be able to do it, they discovered their passions on their own, right? Because in the beginning, they all wanted to go to school. They all wanted to be with their kids. And then, they discovered, well, wait a second. I don't want to go back there because that means that we would have to live in the neighborhood, and then we can't go outside when we want to, and we can't shoot guns or shoot BB guns, or we can't process chickens, or we can't have these things. We can't have sheep. We can't do these things. We like these things. These are things that I've said yes to some things that didn't make any sense. Animals that didn't make any sense. People are just like, well, wait a second. You were just talking to me about being exhausted with all these with all these pigs and all these chickens. You slow down chickens, slow down pigs, also you can get sheep. It's like, yes. And not 2 sheep, but we have like 18 sheep, right? And you're like, well, why would you do that? Well, because my wife is passionate about it, right? That's something that she wanted, right? And is it going to turn out to be anything? I don't know, right? But what have we discovered here is that these are things that they enjoy doing. These are passions that they have discovered. And these were people that were like, we just wanted chicken and grass-fed beef from the store. Like, and that's all we wanted. Now now we have sheep, and now we have all these things, and we raise all of our food on farm, and we're involved in this. And one more story. My son, right, my oldest son, I didn't pay attention to this. It's a proud dad moment, right? And these are the things that you cannot plan them if you wanted to. I don't think I could have planned this, and I consider myself a good planner. I couldn't have planned this if I wanted to. It was time to raise chickens this year for the family. And I ordered the chickens, and the chickens, they came in, and or the chickens were supposed to come in at a certain time, same process. This time, the kids, my boys, were like, hey, we need to set the brooder up. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. We do need to set the brooder up. Let's go set the brooder up. I go get the materials. I bring it. We start setting, we're putting the stuff in. I realize something. I haven't said one word. The brooder is set up. It's set up, and I'm like, oh, man, like, we just did that. Like, my mind is, doing a million things, and I just realized it's just happening, right? The only thing I said was, hey, I got the materials. Let's go do it, right? So we get that done, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, that was easier than I thought, right? So we finish. The chickens come in. We get the chickens come in. The kids, my son's like, okay, well, we're going to dip the beaks, and we're going to put them in, and then we need to turn the heat lamps on the night before. We need to make sure all these things. And I'm just like, yes, son, yes, we need to do all those. Yes, let's do that. Let's do it. They get it done. So long story short, we are 9 weeks into it, and the only thing I do is buy the feed. That's it. I didn't ask him to do any of those things. This is the first time he's probably hearing me say this. I didn't ask him to do this. I told Paige one day, and I left the farm, and I said, hey, I just realized something. The boys are doing this by themselves. I didn't ask them to do it. I didn't ask for their help. They accepted this and said, I want to do this. I am going to do this because this is something that I want to do, and I know how to do it. There's some underlying things. A few days ago, I was told, well, I think with the amount of chickens we have, I can make about $2,000. I'm like, whoa, hold on.
Oh yeah.
Wait a second now. Yeah.
He's been
First of
doing the
all,
math the whole
there's
time.
right. Okay, just wait a second. Right. Maybe we can buy them from you before you try to. Right. So those are the things that we just learned over time. That if as long as we just provide the space and the opportunity and the time to do it, these things will just come. Because it's so good. It's just I believe it's a natural thing to want to be involved with the process of creating your own food. Like, it's just something natural about it.
No, I agree. And I think that a lot of times when people think about farming, it can be really intimidating. And you're like, I don't even know how I could do this. I've got a baby. I've got, I don't know, a hip replacement. There's all of these things. But I feel like the beauty in farming is that you are cultivating. And when you have a family, especially when you have little kids, like you're cultivating their hearts. And I think that for me has probably been one of the biggest takeaways is like, we may not have the most glamorous, perfect setup. I mean, we live in a tiny house, like we're in close quarters. But in that, there have been so many really, really sweet lessons that we've learned as a family in ways that it's been like, hey, I see this in you and I'm able to call this out because I have a relationship with you. And I think that it would be harder in some ways if we weren't doing this together, if we weren't, trying to grow together. And farming in a lot of ways forces you to do that, right? Because it's like, okay, this is the mission. We're going to raise chickens or we're going to grow a garden or we're going to, all of these things. It allows you to think outside of yourself and say, okay, how can we be creative in these ways? How can you use your gifts so that we can do this together? And I think, again, like, even if you don't want to raise chickens, I think even just growing something, there is so much beauty in that. Like we mentioned before, I had no experience with any of this. The closest thing that I had to growing something was like that bean, that bean that you grow in like first grade or something, and you like put it in the cup. Like that was it. Like that was all. But I remember when I did that, I remember being so proud of myself and like taking it home to show my mom and being like, look what I grew. Like, look what I did. Like, I remember that. And so fast forward to now being on a farm, you get to experience that all the time. I mean, there are things that I feel like I have learned. Like I tell this to people all the time. I'm a forever student because I am learning things every day. So I feel like to stand up here and act like we have it all together is not, hopefully no one gets that impression because we do not have it all together. And I am constantly being challenged and I would say refined in the process of farming with my family. I think this is a refining lifestyle, right? To have a homestead, to farm, to grow. You are making an active decision to go through really hard things, but to go through hard things together, and that makes you better. So
we talk about the hard times because there's a lot of with farming and I guess homesteading. There's a lot of failures and a lot of successes, right? Yeah. There's a lot of when I say there's a whole lot of failing, there's a whole lot of it. But the successes are so big. There may not be a whole lot of them, but when you do experience a success, it's a big one. Like it's typically a lot of the times like people say, well, I want to get something. I want to get a chicken or something, but I don't know about the, having to process it or, kill it. And it's like, well, in the beginning, you don't think about that, right? You do think about it, but in the beginning, you're just trying to figure out how I'm going to keep this thing alive, right? And as it starts to grow, right? And I say grow because when we got it, we knew it was to feed ourselves, right? Now, if it's for a pet or different, that's a different story. Our layers are a different story. We have 250 layers at a time. Typically, it's just a bunch of, we got one, the only, of those 250, I can tell you 2 of them. Those are 2 roosters because they look different. The rest of them, they're all the same, right? They're all the same, right? But when we get these things, we're not thinking about the end. We're thinking about the journey and the things that are going to get us where we want to be. Like we want to be hungry. We want to grow something. We want to do something. So let's just try it out. You don't have any control over the environment? No. But during those times of failure, like these things of failure, when I say failure, I'm talking about, okay, sometimes when you move the chicken tractor, you may run over a chicken. And if you know anything about Cornish cross or whatever, it's typically the Cornish cross. The rest of them they're a little bit stronger. The Cornish cross are just, they're fragile, right? It's like they see the wheels and they're just like, okay, the wheel is coming. Let me see if I can scoot underneath the wheel head. Like, let me see if I can get my head under. They do these things, right? Yeah. And then you're just like, well, wait a minute. Look what happened, right? And it doesn't feel good. It actually, you're just like, oh, man, like that stinks, right? But during that time, it makes you pay more attention. It's like, okay, well, these things happen. Okay, maybe we need to design a better coupe. Maybe we need to do these things. You're consistently learning, right? And you do that as a family. Yeah. And if that doesn't, you don't think that will make you stronger or it will bring out a side of you that you've never experienced. There's something about farming that calls out things that you
And I would say for kids especially,
see.
Because I think that's a fear that a lot of people have is like, how do I explain death to my kids? Like, how do I walk through this? Like, and, explain this really real life, tangible thing to my children who maybe don't quite understand it. And I will go back to the point that I said before. I think kids are way more resilient than we give them credit for. And do I think we should expose kids to things that they're not ready for? Absolutely not. But I do think that we live in this world and it's hard to deny the realities that we face. And so I'm grateful for the lessons that we've been able to teach our kids alongside them, while going through this journey. We are part of a homeschool co-op, and when one of my kids they do presentations every week, and one of my kids got up and did a presentation about one of our cows that passed away, and it was like it was my favorite cow. I'm not gonna lie, she was my favorite. And after his presentation, his tutor came and found me and was like, "Hey, I just want you to know that your son gave a presentation today, and I was blown away by the level of maturity that he had in death." She was like, I know for a fact that my kids have no concept of that whatsoever. And I don't think I even wrestled with those tenets until I was an adult, because I didn't really experience death in that way. And she was like, but I just want you to know that is such a beautiful thing. Like, that is such a beautiful thing that you can give your kid to be able to experience that and explain that and walk through that with them. And I guess, again, that's just the approach that we've taken in terms of parenting, is that we live in this world and we can't ignore that. But I want to walk alongside you in that, and I want to be able to have a relationship with you where we can have those conversations, those really hard conversations about big, big things and big concepts. Because I would rather you wrestle with those things with me and your dad, opposed to just getting this, really weird concept of, I don't know, Santa Claus taking away the chickens when they pay. Because that's not real. That's actually not real. And so I feel like it's such a great gift that you can give your kids when you're able to have these types of relationships with them on a farm, in a real life setting.
Yep. And it's not something, again, these aren't things that you're trying to create. A lot of times before, we would find ourselves trying to create these experiences where we could teach, right? So we could expose them to an opportunity, or expose them to things that we're like, okay, well, how do we explain the chicken and the egg thing? How do we explain, all these things? How do you, and it's like, well, we actually figured that out, right? When we process chickens, we're like, okay, well, here we go. Look at, and this was not, we did not plan this. We were processing a chicken, and it had, I was processing, and I felt something. I was like, I haven't seen that before. And I was like, what is that? It was an egg. And I was like, wait a second, there's an egg inside of this chicken, right? In my head, right? You're like, well, were you processing layers? We were not processing layers. One of our Cornish crows got mixed into a different batch. So he was there 16 weeks opposed to 8 weeks, right? Yeah. He got mixed into a different batch, and he had an egg, it had an egg inside of it. And I was like, she had an egg inside of her. There you go. See?
Make sure you clarify that.
Inside of it. And then Paige is like, So
I go, everybody come in, this is science. And I was like, stop what you're doing. And we laid
in the middle of chicken processing. We have people here working, and they're I
was like, no.
What are y'all doing?
Document this. This is science. And we laid all the eggs out, and you could see the progression of the egg developing from just a tiny, and then I was like, when you're a woman, you carry your eggs, and your mom carried her eggs. And sure, it like, I just went on this whole like.
And here I am, like, Paige, we have to package chicken. Like,
this is amazing.
It's gonna be 2:00 in the morning. Yes, these are things again that you're not trying to create these things. They just happen. But in order for these things to happen, you have to have the space to do it. You have to have the time again to be able to cultivate these things. And again, these things just come out. There are some things that you just can't explain. I remember when this happened, I'm like, well, wait a second, that's weird. Like, and then I had to figure out, like, what is happening with this chicken? Like, it just threw me for a loop because that wasn't what I was looking to figure out. I was just trying to get chicken, right? Not trying to learn about the anatomy of a bird. But we learned that throughout the process of doing this, and our kids got to experience that as a byproduct. So a lot of this is just, I don't think there's a perfect way to do it. I think that every individual has the innate, or has this inner desire to cultivate. I believe that 100%, especially men. I think that you're always looking for something. You're not always trying to prove something, but you're trying to feel something. And you're like, well, I feel like I'm pouring out, but I don't feel like I'm filling up anything. Like you're giving and you're giving and you're giving, but you're looking around like, I feel empty, right? And it's like, well, how do you do that, right? I did it in the military by trying to do crazy things, like trying to be better and better and better, like trying to be the best and the best. And it led me to a place of just, well, wait a minute, I'm here, and my family is still suffering. Now my health is bad. Like, what am I really doing, right? These are things that, I'm trying to fill this void that can't be filled. And not until the first day we ate a chicken that we harvested. When I ate that chicken, I told Paige, like 2 bites into it, and I was full. I mean, I sat back at the dinner table, and I can't, like, it was probably one of the best moments that I've had as a husband and a father. Like, I felt full, like full. And my refrigerator always had food in it. Like, our refrigerator was full of stuff, right? I wouldn't necessarily say it was food. It was full of stuff. But this chicken that was sitting in front of us, and the kids are like, but you ain't eating nothing. I'm like, we're past that. Like, these are things that you experience by cultivating, right? It allows you to scratch that itch that we try to feel with other things that aren't created to do that. So, and I think homesteading allows us to be able to do that as a family. I think we have a few minutes for questions. If y'all have something, we'll take them.
Yeah.
How did you get your children involved in the process of processing your chickens, your animals that you guys?
That's a really good question. So when we started,
how did we get our chickens involved, or how do we get our kids? You can call them that too. How do we get them involved in the process of processing our chickens? Yeah. How do we get our kids involved?
So we're Christians, and so one of the first things that we do before harvest is we pray. And so just because taking a life is not something that we take lightly, and that was really kind of like the.
And I was a little scared.
Well, and Derrick was really scared. But every time, though, that's something that we have done when it's on farm. And it's really just a way for us to say, like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is the journey. This is the process. We allow them to engage with, and when we started, with as much as they wanted to and as much as they felt comfortable with. And then over time, when they saw us doing it, it was like, well, this has to get done. And either mom and dad are going to be out here for a real long time, or we can hand. Many hands make light work. Yeah. And so I think kind of just modeling that and showing like we can do this together, it'd be faster, but just lightly encouraging them to do it.
Everyone isn't involved yet.
But it's
we
not.
We openly invited.
It wasn't. You have to.
Yep, they're here. Hey, we would like your help, but if you don't, by all means, go do something.
Yep. So, did you have a question?
Yeah, that's good.
I'll start. So I would say before.
Wait. The question is.
So the question is, what's the difference between our food life and what's the difference from when we started versus now? So I would say before we ate a lot of things that we thought were fulfilling us, right? And I would say that the journey of farming has allowed me to understand what it means to be nourished, opposed to just filling myself with. Well, I mean, I don't know what's the opposite of that. Like
I'll be
filling
so,
yourself.
So just to give you some. Y'all know about Publix? There's a Publix here. Y'all know about Publix?
I don't know if they have Publix here.
Okay, Publix, wherever you're from, Publix, Bojangles, all these places, like Publix for sure. Publix we thought they had the best fried chicken. And I don't know if you've ever had it. I can't speak on it anymore because I haven't had it since we started farming, but we used to eat things like that. It was what was convenient. That's how we ate before we started farming. We were in a hurry and we tried to eat a balanced meal. Right? We try to eat our greens and our meats, but it was like, how fast can we get it? And as long as it tastes good. Mm-hmm. And that's how we ate before. Now, this is, last night, we didn't eat until 9 o'clock, right? And we didn't eat until 9, and you're probably like, what? That's crazy, right? We only ate 2 times yesterday, and that was lunch, and then we ate a late lunch and then a late dinner. And the reason for that is because it's extremely difficult to eat when you only eat things that you raise on your farm. And then for Paige
But I feel like back to the point of like nourishment. Like I feel like now I have a better understanding of what nourishes my body opposed to just like what I'm putting in it, you know? And so the choices that we make in terms of food, it's like we're trying to make those decisions based on what's going to sustain us, what's going to give us the most nutrition, where before I didn't really have that understanding. And I feel like there should be a lot of grace in that because, yeah, I mean, everyone wants to buy 100% grass-fed, 100% whatever, organic, you know, but at the same time, I think there has to be a realistic approach to this in that you need to buy the best that you can for your family. Mm-hmm. And if that means raise it yourself, then do it yourself because you do the math, you might just save money in the end. But yeah, so hopefully that answers it. So today, I don't necessarily buy the same things that I used to, and our health has definitely, it is leaps and bounds. It's improved.
It takes us a lot longer to find food now. It takes a very long time. Now we'll probably eat at one place while we're here, just because we know where it comes from, and that's for a couple of reasons. We would only eat our food if we could, but if we knew farmers that had food, we like to eat, farm-raised food. That's just, we feel like it is healthier for you. I've seen significant changes in my health. I don't have any health issues anymore. I don't have gut problems or issues with that anymore. But again, I don't consume dairy, just any type of dairy. We try to consume the majority of our dairy from the farm, and when we don't, we're very particular about the dairy that we do consume if it's not from our farm. But it's very intentional. And our kids, I mean, we don't go to the doctor anymore. So. Yeah, two things. Ultimately, you want to start a homestead, and you want to. It doesn't matter what age you are. You want to do it, but you still want to enjoy life, right? You still want to travel and stuff like that. I would say having animals and having a homestead, even a garden, it requires time. Again. You got to, somebody has to commit to it. Someone has to commit to being there. And if you don't, if it isn't you or your significant other, then, maybe you got to hire help, right? Because you could do that. Right now we are here, and our farm is still running with no issues since I've been here. But we also have a farmhand that has been there for a year, or he's our farm manager now. No experience before, prior service military, came in, said, I want to learn. Has been there, he lives there, he runs the farm. But that took a year before we were able to do that. Before that, Paige and I didn't travel. We didn't travel together.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just, we didn't. And I would say don't let that hinder you from doing this, but definitely bring people alongside you to, if they want to learn, you can bring someone alongside you to learn. That then creates community for you and as also help with the farm.
Yep.
So.
Right here.
We have a small garden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's just for ourselves.
It's just for ourselves, though. We don't do big produce. But
that's been a growing passion of mine. We're getting there. We're getting there. Go for it.
Oh.
Talking about the transitions that you guys had. Mm-hmm. Those transitions go talking with your kids about those transitions, like to go to homeschool or about
Well,
The so well, I think there wasn't. We went and showed them the farm, and it was just kind of like, show them the animals and stuff like that. And then they're like, wait a minute, what, these are ours? And you're like, yeah, this is ours, but we got to move. And yeah, because we feel like this is what we need to do as a family. Dad will be home more. We'll be able to do more stuff together. All these things that we talk about doing that we're never able to do, we'll be able to do it now because we're here. And I mean, we just had that conversation a few months ago when we were considering purchasing another property that's somewhere else that would require us uplifting and moving. The conversation I started with was, when I started looking was, okay, we're gonna have to. This move, I'm gonna have to put a pool in. Like, I'm gonna have to get a pool, right? And a horse. Like, and I told them never horses, right? But I said a horse and a pool, right? Like, so I'm figuring these things out, but that's how we try to just, things that they're passionate about, I try to involve that in the process of saying, hey, we can, tit for tat. I'm gonna do this if you do this. I'm gonna give this as long as y'all are willing to give this, we'll support this. Yeah. But yeah, it's a conversation. Go for it. When we moved to the land, did we have a consultation on how to set it up? YouTube.
YouTube
Yes.
University.
Yes. I looked at maybe 20 different farms.
Yeah.
Like,
we did visit
Yep.
farms. So in North Carolina, we have a farm tour. I don't know if you guys have a farm where you're from, but if you... Okay. I would look with like your local ag extension and see if they have like a county-wide farm tour, because you could then go and just visit a bunch of farms, and then you can get ideas and kind of look at setups, because it's one thing to look at things on YouTube, but it is really great to be able to go in person and view a property and just see kind of like how they're doing it, or rotational grazing, or whatever that looks like.
So that's a question. That's actually a loaded question, and this was why. How to set your farm up. And the reason why I said I looked at a bunch of different ones is because I originally wanted to do pasture poultry. But the first piece of land that we were able to get, there was no clear pasture. Mm-hmm. So I had to focus on things. I had to shift to something else. So a lot of the times we go into this with like, I have this farm that I want to have, but it's like, well, the land looks like this and I want it to look like this. And it's like, well, unfortunately, you can't do that. You can't run chickens through there because you ain't got no clear pasture. You can't have pigs because it's a swamp. Like, these are just, you have to look at the land itself and then see how you can incorporate what you want to do into the land, and then make it into what you want to, make it into over time. But right off the back, it's kind of hard to just say,
He's
okay,
right. It's not really a one size fits all.
Yep.
And the land is really going to tell you what you can do on it. Mm-hmm. So I would definitely say that. All right. Well, okay.
Go ahead.
We're at time, but
So I have a 10-acre farm, 3 kids that I homeschool. My husband works away, so he's only home 2 weeks at a time.
Yep.
Or for 8 months out of the year.
Yep.
So how do you guys, because when he's home, there's something that I can't do that
Yeah.
he can. So we're busy all the time. How are you guys balancing spending family time, like not doing farm stuff, but then getting farm stuff done, so you're not spending all the time working on it?
yeah. So I would say I've started putting stuff on a calendar. Yeah. And then, like, we'll have a family meeting and say, like, okay, what's the fun thing that you want to do? Yeah. So someone will say, oh, I want to go rock climbing. I want to go skating. And we can't do all that stuff at one time, but we can try to space that out, like once a week or once every 2 weeks. Like, oh, you get to do your thing, right? And I think that's really important for a couple of reasons, because I remember feeling like we can't do anything outside of this farm. And then I had a very experienced farm wife tell me, she said, you make time for it. If you feel like you don't have time, make time, because it's there. It's just what you decide to do with it, and you can do that. So I would say sit down as a family, structure the time outside of the farm, because it is important and it is needed.
Yep. Look at his calendar, and then figure out what you can, because there's animals that you can do, and y'all can figure it out something. You may have to just go, maybe you start with sheep and not cows.
Oh, you've got that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, plan it out. You're going to have to plan it out. Yep, do that year calendar and plan it out. It'll be a lot better for you. Well, last one right here, and then we got to get out of here.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So I would say I'm not the best homeschool mom. I will say this right now. I will definitely make sure that my kids get their chores done as a part of just the day. And the kids do a lot of the chores on the farm. And so when it comes to school time, it's like, okay, I would say teaching my kids how to work independently has been extremely important. Because if your kids can't work independently, you're constantly going to have to like hover over them and show them everything. So independent work, I mean, it helps them in life, right? So that's still something that we're refining, is teaching my kids how to work independently so that we can say, okay, have you finished all of your assignments for the week? Okay, now we're moving on to the next thing. And then scheduling one-on-one time with the kids who need that. But outside of that, it's really more of like, this is what you have to get done. If you need help, let me know. But I'm still taking care of the things that need to get taken care of. So hopefully that answers your question.
Grace. Give yourself grace.
Yeah, and grace.
Everything won't be on time.
All right.
Just give yourself the time. All right,
Thank
thank
you guys so
y'all.
much.